talks, lecture. Dr. Jose is no stranger to us. He's been coming to mcnj last 20 years. He's giving Juma khutbah here. Although lately he's been shying away. Every time I ask him for Juma khutbah, he doesn't come. But back in the days, he was regular here. So many of you senior people, veteran people know him very well. I was told he did an Arabic class too also here. Somebody told me. Tajweed class. He did a Tajweed class here. So we have Dr. Abu Zaid here, Chaudhry, and Dr. Muhammad Abu Bakr Chaudhry. They are the sons of brother late Marhum Muhammad Anwar Chaudhry. As we made dua for him also here in our masjid, and I spoke to you about the janazah. I went to the janazah with a lot of people there. We went to the cemetery. I've known the family for 25 years. Actually, I've known Brother Abu Zaid before that when I was studying in Islamic University in Islamabad. That's when the first time I met him. He came from the United States. He was exploring to study over there, religious studies, while doing his physician studies. So I've been in touch with the family for a long time. The purpose of tonight's program is I'm going to ask each of these two brothers a question, and they'll answer short answers, hopefully like 2-3 minutes, maximum 4, so that we can get more questions in. And the purpose of the questions, no parking, wrong parking? There's a Toyota Corolla in front of the neighbor blocking their driveway, parked on the curbside. It's S84 MKP. I don't know if you memorize your license plate number, but in case. It's a white Toyota Corolla S84 MKP. Please go and remove it. It's not good. Our neighbor will not be happy. How many Juma khutbahs I've spoken about this? We don't need to disturb the neighbor. So please, if it's a brother or sister, it's your car. Please go outside right now, remove the car, park it somewhere properly, and come back in. Sure. So, like we did last month with Officer Mudassir, I'll ask a few questions and they'll answer, brief answers. And then after that, we'll open the floor and you can ask them questions. Try to keep on the topic. Our topic is about the pioneers of Islamic work in America. Because their father came here in 1971? 72. Were you born here? You were not born. So they're raised here but born in Pakistan. With Mudassir Malik, they was born and raised here. So their father came here in 1972 when there were very few masajid, if any. Very few Islamic schools, if any. Very few Islamic centers or community things. So at a time, the reason I say this as an imam, I tell you that when people are immigrating to America, the number one concern they have is about their children. How will I raise my children in America? Imagine a father and mother coming to America in 1972 when there's very few masajid, very few Islamic environment. Today, mashallah, we're blessed. 53 years later now, we have a lot of masajid, a lot of Islamic schools. We can send our kids to Islamic schools. Did you guys go to Islamic school? You did? You did? Oh, you did? Okay. Ghazali? Oh, Ghazali was there. I think. Okay, sure. So their father was one of the pioneers in establishing many masajid in New Jersey and New York, and also Ghazali Islamic High School, if you remember, in Jersey that was started. So inshallah, the idea of tonight's program and the theme is to learn from their experiences of their father and mother, and also learn from their own experiences as growing up in America. These are two kids. There's two kids, by the way. Don't go on the white hair. That's just some paint over there. These two kids were born overseas, raised here in the last 45 plus years, so they can explain, and especially young parents. I see a lot of young fathers here with their toddler kids. It's important for you to learn from their father's experience, the late Marhum Anwar Chaudhry Sahib, how he was dedicated not only in raising his kids with taqwa, iman, and God-fearing, but also providing for his kids and other people's kids, community at large, institutions that will be a lasting legacy. So the masjid in Jersey City, masjid in Teaneck, Darussalam, MCMC over here, even ICJ, he has a contribution. So I will be asking them specific questions that will give us from their answers some insight, some learning to understand that how we can be able to learn together as a community so that we can be able to share those experiences with new parents, new father and mothers, how they can raise their children now for the next 50 years. One thing I must say that I myself, I never said this to these brothers, I myself was very, very inspired and a big fan of their father when I first met them. Met him in 2001 when I first came to New Jersey in Darul Salam. My first day in Teaneck, New Jersey, I was in Darul Salam and I met Dr. Huzaid over there. He was taking a short nap after Dhuhr upstairs, if you remember. He was lying on the floor, and I said, oh, this is the same guy I met in Islamabad. And he was between his, I think, residency and he was taking a short nap. And after that, he invited to Jersey City. I went to Jersey City, Masjid Tawheed. That's one of the masjid his father also built. And when I first met Brother Anwar Chaudhry, some people, when you meet them the first time, you get that impact, that influence, that vibe. That this is a very, उर्दू में कहने में ज़्यादा मज़ा आएगा, इनकलाबी बात है। इनकलाबी उस तरह से कि इंग्लिश में उसको रेवोल्यूशन कहते हैं, जो कि गलत माने उसका है। इनकलाबी उस इंसान को कहते हैं जिसके अंदर एक जोश, एक जज्बा हो। So a person who is very intuitive, very insight, दूरंदेश, on the far-sighted, I could tell that he has a vision, a mission. He has already, by that time, he had already done a lot in America. This is, I'm meeting him after 9/11 in 2001 in Jersey City. And I knew that he will have a long-lasting legacy. Alhamdulillah, we made dua for him before, we made dua again today, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with Jannat al-Firdaus. Ameen. May Allah make all his children sadaqah jariyah for him, and everything that these 9 children inshallah do. They have 4 brothers, all 4 are doctors, and 5 sisters. So 5 and 4, 9 children. These are all his sadaqah jariyah. We make dua to Allah that Allah make these children and these children's children, the grandchildren, and all the nasl, all the generation of Brother Anwar Chaudhry that will come in America until Qiyamah, be a sadaqah jariyah for him and bring him in his grave lots and lots of reward, inshallah. This young boy is going around for collecting donations, so please don't mind him. Give whatever you can, 5, 10, 15, 20. This is for the food sponsorship of our Friday Family Night program. So first I will start with the first question let me see, who should I ask first? You or him? Okay. How did your dad influence you and your siblings with Islamic activism and Islamic work together in USA? I think both of you can answer, but take a few minutes, one and then the other.
First of all, jazakallah everybody for showing up. Truly means a lot. In regards to the question, I think my father, like the old cliche, he led by example. If you step up, the father is always the first figure that a child sees, and you try to emulate. You always try to become like your father, especially the males. You want to be like your dad eventually. And if he's leading by example, the kids usually tend to follow. If the father is not leading by example, and he's saying one thing, but he expects you to do something else, usually the kids are not going to follow. So if he's telling you to get up for Fajr, but he's not getting up, well, guess what? The kids are probably not going to get up, and they're not going to pray the other prayers either. So, alhamdulillah, my father, he was silent. He didn't speak much. In our house, my mother was the disciplinarian. She's the one that showed you the eyes. But my father was the one that you had to emulate and follow. But silently. And he did it silently. He didn't force you. And eventually everybody just followed. And so when it comes to Islamic work and dawah, he was with ICNA since the early days, one of the founders. And dawah was a very, very strong point of his. He used to take us and distribute pamphlets in Journal Square, train station in Jersey City from a young age. And so I was younger than him, my younger brother's younger than me, and they all one day got old enough to come on their own. We would put on our shoes and just follow. He didn't force anybody to come. He didn't say, you have to come with me. He would go, and because we saw the distinct this distinction in the vision in his eyes. We just followed that, and we came with him. So the younger ones saw that from a young age, but when they were old enough to come on their own and leave mom from home and come, they came. And so it's just a classic case of leading by example, giving dawah, taking us to halakas, taking us to programs, ICNA programs and local masajid, programs, and we followed. So when you see the trend set at home from an early age, that's all you ever saw. We didn't see anything else. That's all we ever saw. Recitation of the Quran, the praying in Jama'ah. Another big thing of his was always praying in Jama'ah at home whenever he's available. It didn't matter how tired he was coming home. If everybody was there, hang out with Salah, everybody got up and we prayed right behind him. Alhamdulillah, the tradition still follows.
सवाल पूछ सकते हैं दरमियान
एंड में
क्योंकि वो भूलना ना जाए फिर
लिख लें, फोन निकाल लें, टेक्नोलॉजी यूज करें, इंशाल्लाह. Want to give something on this?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Jazakallah khair for coming. I want to say in the beginning that this program makes us a little uncomfortable. If my father were alive, would be extremely angry and almost afraid of his scolding. He never talked about himself. He hated talking about himself. He hated the limelight. So if you were ever to find out there's a program in his name, we're talking about his life, he would be extremely displeased. So let's make tonight's evening more about principles and ideas and teachings, and not about personalities. I mean, how can you do that? But we'll try our best, inshallah. My father was an Islamic worker from very early days. So he was an associate of Maulana Maududi rahimahullah in Pakistan before he came to the US. He was inspired by him. He spent a lot of time with him. He would visit him at his home in Lahore, in Itra, when he had the weekly gatherings. And he would always fondly recall his meetings. And my father came in 1972. He brought that sense of mission. He always had that sense of mission. He knew why he was put in this world, and he knew that he had a mission to be an Islamic worker for the establishment of Allah's deen. That's the life that he lived. I never saw anything differently growing up, and that is the example that he led in the mission that he inspired in all of us. In America, when he came in 1972, when Maulana Maududi was ill and he came to the US, my father fondly recalls visiting him in New York. He came to Buffalo, New York for treatment. This is 1978 and 1979. He made a number of trips to visit his son and to undergo treatment. My father used to visit when he was in the hospital, and he visited him in his final days right before he had the surgery that ultimately led to his demise. So my father always used to recall, not only my father, many great individuals, great scholars, many of them who passed away would make these trips to visit Maulana Maududi rahimahullah in upstate New York. And my father always reminds us the last time he saw him when he was taken into the operating theater. Maulana Maududi told the group that was there, the group included Bashir Malik, rahimahullah, my father, and Maulana Islam. These three individuals were there. They were the last ones to see Maulana Maududi right before his surgery. And they bid their farewells, and Maulana Maududi said to them, "Patani doara mulakat hoegi nahi." And he gave his kufi to Maulana Islahi, his hat, his topi, and that was the last time seeing him alive. And then they prayed over him at his son's house after he passed. And then they went to JFK Airport. They prayed over him again at JFK Airport. And then his body was taken to Pakistan, where there was a historic janaza ceremony in his honor. So that was the life my father lived from the first moment he arrived in the US. He knew what he had to do, and he was just involved in all the efforts that he found for the establishment of deen in this country, whether it's different masajid, some of the oldest masajid in the US. He saw their founding, Islamic Center of Jersey City, Darul Islam Teaneck. As children, I remember being taken there before there was a masjid. There was only land, we would pray in tents. ISCJ, Route 1, some of the major masajid, MCMC, where I live now, when it was on School Street, my father was involved, the community was involved, not just him. When I say my father, we're speaking about him, but it was a movement, it was a group of individuals, they're all involved in these efforts. The oldest Islamic school in the US, Al-Ghazali, was founded, and my father gave his entire family to the school. So every single brother and sister, all like 9, well, 2 were in Pakistan, all of them were placed in that school from beginning to end. The only one who didn't go was myself, because I was in like 3rd grade and they had up to 7th grade. Every year they expanded 1 grade, but I was always 1 grade ahead.
You missed it.
Yeah, so I was always 1 year ahead. But the rest of my brothers and sisters, every single one of them was put in the Islamic school from beginning to end. My father firmly believed in that vision. So this is the life that he lived, and we are grateful for that. And this generation of pioneers, not just him, but so many individuals of that generation, they have something about them that we don't have. Like, we can speak, maybe we have more information, more knowledge than them, but they had that himmah, the sincerity that we cannot replicate. None of us can replicate a fraction of that. So people say, oh, look at you and you guys are Sadaqah Jariyah. We can't even do a fraction of what he and the people of his generation did. And we are mindful of them, we are humbled by that. Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, Razani High School, I remember I joined in 2001, August, and I was teaching in the high school. So I taught I think Omar, that was the last year Omar was there, and Omar Chaudhry, their other brother, who's a doctor too, and then I taught their sister, Aisha, and then Salman, the youngest one. So I did see these siblings coming to the school, mashallah, very well-mannered, well-educated. I could tell, your children are your parents' product. From the children's adab, from the children's behavior, akhlaq, you can tell how much the parents have done tarbiyah. And I say that again and again as an imam in our masjid and also in Masjid Wali when I'm there, that parents have to invest in their children, because your children are an ambassador of you as a father and mother. Shifting the topic a little bit towards work and activism and career, one question I have always wanted to ask is that how did you and your siblings develop the desire for having both a career and professional life? I mean, I've seen your brothers and sisters, especially the brothers, very active in medicine, physician. All 4 brothers are doctors, all 4 are physicians, and they're all 4 also, involved in teaching and khutbah and lectures and bayan, and some may be more, some may be less. But my question is that how did you yourself personally, and then maybe the other brothers and sisters, develop this liking that you want to manage both? It's very hard. Usually, today's youth, they ask me that, I don't want to go in professional studies, I just want to go to Al-Maghrib, or I want to go to Medina and just become an imam. And I tell them that, look, there are a lot of individuals here in America who are balancing both careers. You don't have to cut off one set of studies to just become an imam. And you can balance both. So if you can shed some light on that, how did you as a child growing up develop this idea that I want to be a physician, a doctor, and also a khatib, a speaker, teaching people?
Well, the physician part was easy because it was his choice and not ours, so he forced us. That's the short answer. He gave us no choice. I resisted for many, many years. I was clashed with my father about that idea. I wanted to study maybe social sciences, history, Islam. That was my interest from day one. I hated medicine. And he gave none of us any choice. So
is there a reason he wanted all of you?
So yeah, I'm going to get there. Well, in the 70s and 80s, there are so many Pakistani pharmacists that came to the US. And almost all of them, like you can say 99% perhaps, all their children are physicians. So it's just a generational thing. My father, he asked us to go into medical school, and he really strongly pressured us. The other side, the activism, he didn't say anything. He just led by example, so that was automatic. But the career side, it was a tremendous amount of pressure. He would say why, and we didn't understand the wisdom. Now looking back 50 years later, not 50 years, but 30 years later or so, we realized he wanted us to be independent. And he believed that Islamic work needs to be independent. So he said this is the only way you can stand on your feet and earn and serve the deen. He didn't want people to be serving the deen at the mercy of the community. And when I think back, that really, like over the years, I came to that conclusion also, but then I realized that's exactly what he meant by all of it. Because if you look at our history and our tradition, the greatest figures in our history, Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Abu Hanifa, all of them, they never took compensation for their services. They had their own businesses. Those businesses made them independent enough to serve the deen and to teach people hadith and fiqh and all of these things. So that's a very important quality that's sometimes missing. You can only be an effective da'i if you're not dependent upon the people. That's why there are 8 verses in the Quran where Allah reminds the prophets to say to their people, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. The first thing you say to the people before you invite them to Islam, say, I do not expect any financial compensation from you. لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. Because when there's financial compensation or you're dependent upon like the community for a job and things like that, that kind of, it's not wrong, but it's kind of takes away from that independence. So that's the vision that he had. And it wasn't because of love of medicine. Thinking back, he doesn't believe like doctors have all the answers, and I mean, he was a very ill person all his life. And I realized that it's not because he loved medicine and there are some people just love the field, they believe doctors are the best human being. It wasn't because of that, it was only because of one reason. He knew that this was a way to stand on your feet. He wanted us to stand on our feet in order to serve the Ummah. That was really it.
Share some?
Yeah, I think most of the points are touched on. I think it's more about independence. We didn't agree with his ideology at the time. I wanted to be an athlete, think how dumb you are, right? Like, there's no future in that, right? NBA. But as you get older and your kids get older, you see the hikmah, right? We didn't understand it back then. And my decision, they made very early. I got sent off. I was 18 years old to medical school to the Caribbean. But you understand as you get older and wiser the reasoning behind it. Back then, you couldn't tell me. It's one of those things you will not comprehend until you have kids on your own. It's about independence. It's about taking care of the community. You get hasanat because you're helping the ill, and you get to stand on your own feet for the most part. And you can do more work for the deen at the same time, like we mentioned. So back then, in the 70s and 80s, it was like doctors and everyone else. Now the field is the paradigm has shifted. Doctors have maybe come down a little bit, the rest of the entities have gone out. So now it's not so black and white. Now there's other fields that compensate very well, that people are working from home and you can do things for the deen while working from home. But in the 70s and 80s, like I said, the paradigm was like this. So that was the vision they had. And the deen part, he led by example, we followed. But as far as the medicine part, that had to be instilled in us. He knew that that's the part he had to work on because he wasn't a doctor himself, although he was in medicine. But he wanted us to shoot for the stars.
One question I want to take from this further is, as you were growing up here in America, in that era, can you explain to our audience how was the environment in New Jersey? I mean, there were not that many massages. So how was the Islamic environment, Islamic activity? Can you share some tidbits or some events from your life, from your childhood when you were 5-year-old, 6-year-old? That's when you start building your memory. So you were going with your dad or mom at different places. How was Eid? Did you have to travel a long distance to pray Eid? So share some thoughts, because many of these people are new immigrants. Whereas your dad is a very senior, 50 years ago he came here. So if you can share from your childhood memories, that'll give the audience some insight on how much struggle the first Muslim generation had to do.
So I came to the US in 72 along with my father. I was 6 months old. So I was almost born here, but I was 6 months old when I came. So growing up in the 70s, there were hardly any masajid. There was maybe one masjid in all of New Jersey. One major masjid. There are probably smaller masajid in different communities that we're not aware of. Some of the African American communities have very historic masajid. At that time, some of them were the Nation of Islam before they became Orthodox Muslim. So the earliest memory I have of Eid, we would go to Queens, so we would drive a long distance.
From Jersey City?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so we lived first in, so my brother's a historian, I get all the facts wrong, the dates wrong, I don't know any of my kids' ages, I don't know my age, I don't know.
You don't know your age?
I don't know my, and I'm thinking 60, okay. So, it was, so the Eid used to be in, the Flushing Meadow Park. There's a park with a big globe in the middle.
So what was mcnj at that time there? Muslim Center? Oh, Ikna Marcus.
Yeah, Ikna Marcus was established, but prior to that was in, so I just remember going there, a very long drive, and then it was a huge park, and there would be people from all over.
How many people have roughly?
I mean, I was too young, but I just remember large crowds. It's almost like the Six Flags Muslim Day, that kind of environment. There's a park and it's like festive, and then we started going sometimes to Teaneck, Dar al Islam, when it was established. It was established, I think, 78 or 79, when Mullah Islahi first came to the US in 78. He came to Teaneck and he gave the idea to start a masjid in Teaneck. So 78, 79, so the late 70s, early 80s, foundations were laid down for a masjid in Teaneck, and then Jersey City around the same time they bought the Armory. So these are the places we used to go. So there used to be a lot of traveling. There were no halal places. There was no halal food. Growing up, we never ate out. The first time I ate food outside of the house was when I was in college. Like before that, there's no options. Like,
No McDonald's? Fish Philly?
McDonald's, no, I don't think there were McDonald's. I don't remember seeing McDonald's. But it was a very different environment. Like, but the blessing in that is that you knew everybody, and the community, they were much closer together. So like when you have large communities, you can go and not meet anyone, but over that time, the brotherhood you get in these communities is like the tarbiyah you get from that is unimaginable. Like you're just a handful of people. Mullah Islahi tells a story. He suggested to Khalid Bey, I think in Teaneck, that you should start a halal meat so we can have meat. We don't have to go very, very far, upstate New York or something. And then the idea was established for, like halal meat stores, and then massages were established in the Islamic